the story that you told about the Beach Boys recording the Party record. And you guys were in the studio, I guess, next to them, and you went over and just happened to kick off an idea, which turned out to be Barbara Ann. Can you tell us a little bit of that about that story? Because that actually just blew my mind. When I heard that, I was like, oh, wow, I had no idea.
That's strange.
It's crazy.
I'll try and shorten the story a little bit. Brian Wilson, at this particular time, was working on Pet Sounds. And, of course, Pet Sounds was nothing like what he had recorded before.
Right.
So the record company was wondering, what's taking you so long? I mean, you never really spent that much time on Little Deuce Coupe.
Right.
They were looking for that kind of a song. And they had no idea. I don't think they even had any ideas working on stuff like Good Vibrations, very complicated songs, and God Only Knows, and those kinds of songs take a lot more time than those songs that the record company were used to. So they kept pestering him, where's the record? Where's the record? And it's coming. And he finally decided that that he wasn't really that close to finishing, and they had been bugging him so much, he thought, well, I have this other idea of doing a party record that could be cut in one night in a party atmosphere, and we could do it again one night. We could mix it and put it together in a couple of days, and then I can hand it to the record company and get them off my back for a couple of months. That's the only reason he decided to do this project
that's
then
crazy.
And there. So, of course, we were invited. His idea was to have friends and neighbors and all sorts of people come to this party. And he, of course, wanted to feature us because, they're musical buddies. And we ran it by our record company because now we were actually going to, our likenesses might be on their record album cover, and of course would be mentioned and stuff. So our record company said, the only way we will let you do that, because we were on separate labels, is that if you get a signed agreement from the Beach Boys that they will be on your next project. Oh. We said, look, we don't sign stuff, it's all verbal agreements, and Brian's already created Surf City and 3 or 4 of our other major hits. He's already been on them, and he didn't ask for any credit or anything.
Right.
So what's the difference? And they said, unless you get that contract, we don't give you permission to do it. So we just happened. So unfortunately, we had to tell Brian we couldn't do it, and then we just happened to be in the studio, and we were we were in the big studio, and they were in a little bit smaller studio, but we were almost right across the hall from one another. And they knew that we couldn't participate or weren't supposed to. And somehow there was a lull in our recording. We had to fix something. So I said, I'm going to go take a break. I'm going to walk over to the Beach Boys studio. And Jan said, okay, but remember, don't sing. And I said, don't worry. I was in that time. I maybe walked in, and about 2 minutes later, I was singing. So obviously, I didn't take direction very well.
Right.
But I knew I had about 15 minutes, and then I had to be back in my studio. So, of course, the guys said, what do you want to sing? And I said, anything that we don't have to rehearse more than once.
Right.
If that, because I only have about 10 or 15 minutes, I have to be back. And they kind of knew my situation. They said, well, you'll be our secret singer. I said, okay, fine. We don't, nobody's to know. And they said, oh, don't worry. So I suggest Barbara Ann, because Jan and I had done it a couple of years before, and just put it on a album. And I thought, Barbara Ann, everybody knows Barbara Ann. So I said, Barbara Ann, let's do that. So we started at least twice before we actually did a full take. and we kept tweaking the, I don't know, maybe, I think we changed the key once, and we changed some vocal parts around. I was singing background parts with the other guys, and then Brian was singing the falsetto lead. After the second take we did, Brian said for me to sing with him, and then the other guys said, no, he's over here with us singing the background parts. I didn't care which. I was having fun no matter what.
Right.
I'm looking at my watch going, but we need to finish something because I got to get out of here. So Brian won because Brian was the producer, so I went over to his microphone, and we sang one take all the way through, and then it stopped, and then it was so much fun, we started it again, and then we stopped, and then we said one more time and did it, just kept doing the ending over and over again because it was so much fun.
Right.
And finally we ended it on kind of a blues ending, which was kind of goofy. And then I go, okay, are we done? And they said, yeah. And I'm walking out, and this music's still kind of going a little bit, and somebody says, thank you, Dean. Well, I think, the recording's over.
Right.
Dang. They had that recorder going, and on the actual record, at least the version that's on the LP,
right,
you can hear the thank you, Dean. I went back in the studio. I told Jan I didn't sing. I just listened, and he was okay with that.
That's
that ended up, and I guess you're pointing out that ended up being either their top-selling single, or at least it was their second top-selling single of all time.
Right. I mean,
those guys.
It's incredible.
Less than 15 minutes.
Wow. It's incredible too. I mean, you're on that track, so I mean, you must, when you hear that, part of you must be transformed back into that studio and just going in there and knocking it out real quick. I mean, it's incredible story, and
it actually wasn't until the repackage. I mean, I kind of got used to hearing the single version, which is not as long. It doesn't have the false starts and all of that.
Right.
The single version is still fun to hear, but I'd always liked the longer version with all the takes. And they just put out, of course, the 50-year anniversary of the Party album with all of the chitter-chatter and all of the kind of fun stuff that you'd normally have to leave out. And I had not remembered what it really sounded like to kind of do all those false takes and start over and all that stuff. And that was really, really fun. I'll have to admit, I absolutely loved it.